Hi, everyone. Joette Calabrese here. Good evening. And tonight we're going to have a little discussion about, oh, hi, Perry. He's joining me to sit right next to me, I guess. We're going to have a little discussion about a little bit about my, how I came about doing this, because I want to encourage you to think similarly. I don't expect you to do exactly what I did, of course not. I expect instead for you to do the best that you can do for your own family, whatever that might be, and you, of course, have to make that determination. So I want to start with the fact that I was a mom like any other mom, except that I had my children a little bit late in life, and I'd suffered tremendously with chronic illness. Severe allergies, food intolerances, chemical sensitivities that had gone wild. I was unable to work because I was around perfume. I had just renovated a small house, and I became very ill from that. And it seemed that no matter, I was damned if I did and damned if I didn't. No matter where I went, no matter what I tried to do, I was sick. And I had not had my family yet. I wasn't married. And my husband and I met, and I was still quite ill at the time. And I found homeopathy when I was pregnant with our first child. Now, up until that point, I had been reading incessantly. And my mother was reading as well, trying to find answers. Now, at that time, there was no internet, so we just read books. And I've said this story, I've given you this story before, but I wanted to reiterate that because of my own sufferings of allergies for a good part of my life, and because of my searching, that once I found homeopathy, I felt as though I'd come home. And I've said this before, maybe even only last week, but I dated naturopathy. I dated essential oils. I dated, especially, I was getting pretty serious with botanicals, with herbs, but I married homeopathy. And the reason was that it was so efficacious. Hard to find the right remedies sometimes, but when I did, and it was correct, it was a dead ringer almost every time. So only when I got it right. But when I got it right, it was amazing. And I know those of you who are here tonight know exactly what I'm talking about. So from that, I was able to springboard and feel confident enough to take care of my children. In fact, I vowed that I would not use any antibiotics for my children. Now, at the time, I was a little naive, thinking I could get away with never, ever allowing my children to have antibiotics. But my naivete served me well. I took my first son to a pediatrician who, against my decision, I told him I was thinking about how we were going to administer vaccinations and that we might postpone it. And when he was only 6 weeks old, I took him to the pediatrician and they inoculated him. Anyway, they gave him a vaccine in spite of my discussion with him about this before. So my son got very sick. I have written about this. It's on my blog. I've actually written about it on also on my in my column on the Weston A. Price Foundation's newsletter. So you might find it as well in there. That's Weston A. Price Foundation. Wise Traditions is the name of the newsletter. Thank you. And what was great about this was that was my foray into homeopathy. I only knew that my son was very, very sick. He had a high fever, 105 plus. He was parched, and I was nervous but resolute. And at the time, I had already purchased a small book on homeopathy and a kit that everyone should own. You should all have a homeopathy kit. And some people say, oh, well, I've collected remedies through the years. Well, yes, but also know that the companies that manufacture kits know exactly what you need to run a household. So you may have a lot of remedies. You may not have all those that are in the kit, check it out. You know, you do want to balance them. If you've got a lot, of course, that makes sense. But everyone should own a kit, a homeopathy kit, in a 30th potency and a 200th potency. So I digress for a moment. So when I treated my son, it was downright magical. And I won't go into it in great detail right now, but I do want to tell you that it astounded me. Now, the reason I could be so astounded was because I've been using conventional drugs for years. I've been previously married to a doctor. I have cousins who are doctors. I had bought into the paradigm wholeheartedly. Not that I don't now. There's aspects of modern medicine that I think are very valuable. But when it came to raising children and treating them for their childhood illnesses, I felt as though I could probably do a better job. It was, again, naive of me, but it served me. Because at that time when my son was treated with that vaccine, and he was made so sick, and then I uprooted the vaccinosis right before my very eyes and my mother's eyes, I made a vow, never again, we will not go back to a pediatrician, ever. So I've raised 2 subsequent children as well. They're all adults now, and so we never went to a pediatrician. Now, am I telling you not to go to a pediatrician? No, I am not saying that. I'm telling you that it's possible for someone to have raised 3 children to adulthood without using antibiotics, without using steroids or breathing treatments, etc. And one of my texts, so to speak, for my life, besides homeopathy, was Dr. Robert Mendelssohn's book, How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor. Excellent book. He's no longer with us, but that book is still available. And the last time I checked on Amazon, I believe it was $1. So run as fast as you can. Don't walk to Amazon and get that book. And also get it not just for yourself, but perhaps someone you know. So that book gave me confidence as well. But I've been reading many other books before that. It didn't take just one book. It took many years leading up to this, reading naturopathy, reading lots of books on botanicals. And so I did it. I'm here to tell you I did it. My sons are in their 20s and one is in his 30s, and we have made it without using these drugs, period. Tylenol, aspirin, acetaminophen, any of those. All of what my sons have used and my family have used has been homeopathy, herbs, and good food. Now, am I bragging? In a way, maybe I am. But more importantly, I'm passing this on to you. I must say that every time one of my children got sick, I chalked it up to one more illness without a drug, one more illness without a procedure, one more illness. And so I started to grow and feel confident because I was racking up my personal life points. And that's what I want to tell you about. What this does is it creates a complete game changer. That's what homeopathy is. It will give you the ability to be confident as a mother or grandmother, as someone, if you don't have children, taking care of pets, livestock, you're still a caregiver, taking care of your elderly parents, your neighbors, your friends, etc. This homeopathy and this method of homeopathy, number 1 is a game changer, but this practical homeopathy that I'm teaching will flip the switch for you in a way that will change your life and those around you. And I start with this, even though you know it, for those of you who've been following me for a while, you all know this. I know you know this, but I want to give it to you again. I want you to understand that this changed my life. It changed my children's lives. It can change your life. In fact, if you're here, it probably already has changed your life. So we've just put out my course, an alternative to alternative to antibiotics, and it's now available right here on the blog. And you can go to it by going to antibioticalternative.joe@calabrese.com. Now, look, I'm not telling you need to buy this course. If you find that this would be valuable to you, then by all means do it. But we have a download, an infographic that at least gives you a little bit of foundation, a little bit of information to help you springboard. Some people say, well, why didn't you give more information on these infographics? For example, how often to use it? Well, because that is a course. And so I'm trying to give you as much as I can for free. And should you feel you need to go further, then by all means, I want to let you know that my course that we offered, I think we offered it last summer perhaps, and now it's available again to the general public, last fall. So I also want to go over what I wrote about last night in some of the rules that I believe are key to getting this whole picture right, about how to start this, or if you've already started, how to fuel this lifestyle. You have to get, and the first one I put down here last night in my blog was get the nutrition part right. It's not about veganism. And how do I know that? Look, I'm not a nutritionist. I don't have a degree in nutrition, but some things are just self-evident. And I wasn't self-evident to me many years ago because I did indeed follow a vegan lifestyle for several years. And in case you can't tell by the way that I delve into things, I go all the way with it. And I did for many years. And I believe I did a real disservice to myself, and especially my first child. So what I do like about veganism is that generally speaking, around it, you will find some valuable nutritional bits of information. And that is, you should try to eat organically. You should eat seasonally, according to the seasons. You shouldn't eat foods that have ingredients in them unless all the ingredients are something that you would have right there in your pantry or in your kitchen. So it does teach you some of those, but I believe that veganism is a mistake. So get the nutrition part right. And one of the ways to do that is to follow WestonPriceFoundation.org. I'm on the honorary board of that organization. I don't get any kickbacks for telling you this. But what I'm telling you is that is a great organization, Weston A. Price Foundation. They have a lot of good information. And they have what I believe is the basic foundation for good nutrition. So the next one is to gather as much information as you can regarding vaccinations before you vaccinate your child. Yeah, get the information from your pediatrician by all means. Get the information that they believe is important, and then find the alternative information. Read both sides of the story. And I mean really read or watch both sides of the story. You want to get a hold of the Video Vaxxed or those kinds of videos out there and start studying and reading and listening to other opinions. And you don't want to do this alone. I urge you to do this with your husband. If you're going to do the reading, perhaps you do the reading. But if it comes to learning this and how to make a decision about how far to vaccinate, when to vaccinate, whether to vaccinate, etc., your spouse should be watching those videos with you. The next is put an end to the use of Tylenol, antibiotics, and other suppressive drugs. And it's one thing to for the liver to have to process a condition, toxins. And I'm not a toxin-speaking person. I don't like to talk about toxins because I think it scares people, and I think it's superfluous just to frighten people. And I don't believe that is what we're surrounded by. But I do believe that when we're ill, we already have an illness that has to be processed. The body's already working hard. When we add a synthetic drug on top of that, now the body's got to process two conditions: the condition of the illness and the drug. How does the body process the drug when it's already on its knees? You can only ask the body to do so much, which is why many times when people use drugs, the flu lasts longer. The cold is more lingering. The eczema is kicked down the road so that the person now has eczema for life or conditions for life. So you want to stay away from these drugs as often as you can. Now, if you have to have surgery, you have to have a tooth extracted, you have to have a plate put in your leg after an injury, and you're going in for surgery. Do you use drugs? Of course you do. Of course, we use general anesthesia. Not we, but the anesthesiologist uses general anesthesia, unless you are really strong and you can bite down on a bullet and drink whiskey beforehand. That general anesthesia it's very important. Can you do without antibiotics? Well, work with your surgeon and see if your surgeon is comfortable with you not taking antibiotics. But in general, antibiotics are handed out like candy, and that is a travesty in my estimation. It's kicking the can down the road. It causes the body to have to work with a condition that is on top of the illness itself. Same thing with Tylenol. Now, sometimes my clients say to me, oh, I'm so sorry I used Tylenol because the remedies that I was using weren't correct, or I got it wrong, and it just didn't help my headaches, and I feel really guilty. And I always say, don't feel guilty about using a drug when you're suffering horribly. Use what you have to use for then, and now you've got some information. And next time you're armed. Look at exactly what happened. That headache was horrible. Okay, now what do I do? What remedies can I use for that migraine? What remedies can I use for the next time I have an upset stomach? And learn from it. Just use that information. Don't kick yourself and say, well, I can't do this. I'm no good at it. No, you're good at it because you're motivated. When you're motivated, you kind of can't help yourself. And one of the things I talked about yesterday in my blog was to have a mentor that you can count on. Now, am I saying that I should be your mentor by watching these? Yeah, I guess I am saying that. I love being your mentor. I love being the one teaching you this. This is my heart's delight, to be able to teach others, families, how to use this, because I believe that I'm onto something. I think we're all onto something, that the jig is up about using drugs for illness, and that this is a very viable homeopathy, very, very viable method that anyone can learn. Anyone. You can teach this to your homeschooling children. You can teach this to the non-homeschooling children. But I want to teach this to you. And if you don't like me as a mentor and you think that I'm not doing this right, then find another mentor. But find someone who's ahead of you, that can give you some advice. Someone that you know has had enough experience and has the information. And again, it doesn't have to be me. There are a lot of good homeopaths all over the world. And they are, a lot of them are online. And I urge you to read not just what I tell you and what I'm teaching, although I try to put out so much information that you don't have to go elsewhere if you choose not to. But the point is, there are others that are good, that are out there. Keep your pediatrician at arm's length. And that's what I touched on just a little earlier. If I have any distaste for any particular medical paradigm, in general, it's about pediatrics. It's regarding pediatrics. There are some really great pediatricians. I know several of them who are committed and who are not looking to sell you drugs for your child. Those are the good ones. If you're blessed to have that person in your life, by all means, stay there. And also tell others about this pediatrician, because they're worth every ounce of time that you might spend with them. But what I don't like is for conventional pediatricians to teach parents, teach mothers that they are incapable of making decisions on their children's health. That is very irritating to me at best. It undermines a mother's natural desire to take care of her children. It undermines the mother's natural intellect to use her instinct and then her brain to learn how to treat her family. And so when I say keep that pediatrician at arm's length, do you need to know how much your child weighs? Think about it. Do you need to know if your child is well? Do you need a well baby checkup, a well child checkup? Really? You can't tell? You can't tell by looking at your child? You can't employ your mother or your mother-in-law to say, Mom, what do you think? Is he looking all right to you? Yeah, he looks good. His skin looks good. He's, you know, he's getting robust. He's playing. He's got good energy. Now, some of those are missing. Now it's time to start using homeopathy and learn about it, or nutrition, or whatever else may need to be employed. A myriad of issues that could be concern, that could be the problem with a child is not growing properly. But more often than not, I will tell you that a child is not growing properly. It has often to do with inheritance. And that's something that you can work on with homeopathy as well. So ask yourself, is it important to go to this pediatrician all the time? Many people will say, yeah, but don't you just want that information? And I always say, well, what information are we getting? That your child needs this drug, that your child needs to be weighed up against other children in their height and weight. Use your common sense and go to a pediatrician only when you're in trouble, when you really need help. The pyramid, as far as I'm concerned, is upside down. You need to know how to do all of this yourself, and as a last resort, you go to a pediatrician. You look at, is this an ear infection? Do I have a method for treating ear infections? Do I have the homeopathic medicines for an ear infection? Is this a sore throat? Do I have the method at hand? Do I own the remedies for this? That's what you look at, and you start with there. Now, if I'm speaking to you and you're saying, oh my gosh, I can't take this all on without my pediatrician, then meet me or meet this information wherever you are. It's not necessary that you dive into it. You can do this slowly. But the goal, in my estimation, is to get away from that the only expert here is the pediatrician. Okay, and then my number 6 is do your homework before major health issue presents. Well, hello, that's logical, right? Are your children gonna, if you have a newborn, is your child gonna get croup? Yeah, many children get croup. Do you know how to treat croup? Well, you better find out. Go to the blog, it's free. Do you know how to treat an ear infection, et cetera, et cetera? Make sure you're prepared. That's just common sense. And it's inevitable. Your child is going to get sick. Your child is going to have an injury. So are you, so is your husband. So plan in advance so that you're up and running. The next one is throw away the chemicals. And I don't mean, I've been talking about medicines as chemicals, but chemicals such as cleaning fluids, dishwasher soap that's got perfumes in it, deodorants, you know what I'm talking about. Febreze, oh my God, that stuff is horrible. I can't believe that people actually use that stuff. But if you're using it, I don't mean to insult you, but holy cow, get yourself some good essential oils and use that on your mop. Put a couple sprinkles of that on your mop and stop spraying that other stuff. So get rid of the chemicals. It's hard on the body. It's hard to process. For those people who are sensitive, it's hard, and those with allergies, it can be particularly difficult. So the next one is empower yourself with Guts, Spunk, and Moxie. Oh, no, it isn't. It's unplug the bedrooms. I have a little mechanism. I wish I had it here in front of me. It's called a Gauss meter. Oh, my husband's going to look for it. Yeah, I think it's in that drawer. And I test it wherever, not wherever. I don't use it all the time. It's kind of interesting. Here it is. It's a Gauss meter. I got it online. I've had a couple of different ones. And it measures the electromagnetic fields in a home. And what's really fascinating about this little meter is that you can tell whether or not there's going to be, hold on, we're going to plug this back in again. I think that's okay. It measures whether or not there's a lot of energy, electromagnetic fields around your head when you're sleeping, around your children, etc. I think we all know we should not be sleeping on an electric blanket. But it's not a matter of just not turning it on while you're sleeping. It should be not just turned off, but unplugged. Because what this little mechanism does is, even when the electric blanket is plugged in, excuse me, it reads the electricity coming in from the wall, through the socket, in through the fixture, and it's still electricity coming in, and it's you're laying on top of it. Pardon me?
So what is it called again?
Yeah, it's a Gaussimeter. Gauss.
METER.
Yeah, I don't know if it's this is called a milligauss. MILLIGAUSS meter. This one happens to be made by Alpha Lab Inc. And you can buy it through tryfield.com. Made in the U.S. So when my husband and I are looking to buy a property, or we're going to stay somewhere for a very long period of time. I don't worry about it in hotel rooms and things like that. But if we're renting or if we're going to buy a property, I use this. I turn it on and I walk around the building and look at if there are over-the-top numbers. And that tells me, uh-oh, what is this? Then I can look outside the building and see if that's where the electrical line is coming in. You don't want an electrical line that's coming in to feed into the house 2 feet away from your child's bed, so that it's on the other side of the bedroom wall. Those are the kinds of things that this gives you the ability to read. So meanwhile, though, unplug the especially the other thing in the bedroom is the digital alarm clocks. Very high. When you put this up against one of those, it goes through the roof. And the same thing with the digital clock on the front of a stove, and a rheostat is another one. So that's how I learned about rheostats years ago. So my husband and I just got a new house, a little cottage, and we are removing the rheostats. So I don't use dimmers. That's either the light is on or the light is off for me. I'm not looking for mood from my dining room lights or my living room lights so much. So we just remove them and put in a regular switch. So there's a lot to learn about that, but be careful because that can scare the wits out of you, and I don't want that to happen either, because we need to have our wits about us as mothers. And the last one is empower yourself with guts, spunk, and moxie. Listen, folks, this does take some effort, but holy cow, can you think of any better way to spend your life? For me, learning this was an extension of motherhood. Every penny I spent on my education learning about homeopathy, and I felt as though I was giving it immediately back to my children and to my husband. And it allowed me to spend money. I would ask for very expensive homeopathy paraphernalia, such as kits and books, etc., for birthdays and Christmas, because everyone knew that it was an investment in our family's well-being. So I felt comfortable doing that. So I'm going to answer some questions right now. Let's see what we've got here. We had some others from last week too, but let's see what we've got. Hold on. Let's see. In the 1980s, well, this person is telling me I was gutsy enough to raise my children with homeopathy with, oh, that's me, isn't it? With only my mama's support and one book. I would crush remedies and make a paste of them to put them on skin issues, brushing, cuts, scrapes, and burns. Arnica was never used on an open wound. That's right. It seemed to work well. Now for my question, is this acceptable? Is it acceptable to use remedies crushed and put directly on a wound? It depends on what you're using. It's not about the lactose or sucrose that the remedy is made on top of or is carried with, but it's a matter of what the remedy is. So yes, you should not put arnica on an open wound. So that's a very good question. Perry, I think I need the questions from last time. Maybe you can help me just find that. Let's see. Yes. I had some other questions here. Do you have those questions from that? No, we don't have them. Okay. All righty. someone had asked about silica last week and whether or not it was silica and silicea are the same, and yes, they are. And so the reason that I want to even bring that up is because silica, names of remedies are written in Latin and or in English. So one is often English and one is Latin, so you just have to look up the Latin word. Okay, Perry's finding some questions from me from last week. Okay, I got the name of the meter for you, and I gave you the brand. And someone asked, do you think eating, earthing pads. Dawn, I thought you were asking if we should be eating earthing pads and sheets are a good idea. No, you should don't, Dawn, do not eat an earthing pad or sheet, okay? Do I think they're a good idea? I have one at my feet that because I'm at my laptop and my desktop all day, or my desktop all day. Yes, I think they can be valuable. How valuable, I don't know. I don't have a lot of information on it. And I give that over to those who know more about that. And yes, I think they can be valuable. They're not expensive. I bought mine from Radiant Life. Those are the folks, they're friends of mine, so I trust them. That's Radiant Life Online. Okay, let's see if we can come up with some more questions. Oh, this was an interesting question that came in last week that I didn't get to answer. My husband's body tends to be really resistant to medications, and he needs a lot for it to work. Would that translate to homeopathy? No, I don't believe it would. No, it's a completely different paradigm between conventional drugs and homeopathy. Remember, conventional drugs are synthetic and homeopathy is natural. Homeopathy can be made from poisons, of course, but it is the poison and that's it, and diluted many, many times so that the poisonous aspect of it is brought down, and remember, the curative aspect is brought to the fore. So when I'm taking a remedy, this is a question that comes up frequently, and we're going to be writing a blog on it a little bit more thoroughly. But so when I'm taking a remedy and having had mint tea at night, am I canceling my remedy? It's a broad question, and I don't know if that means that you took a remedy because you just hit your head and you're taking arnica or cuprum or something, and you want to know whether or not, if you have a cup of tea, whether or not that remedy will still act. Or are you talking about you have a flu and you're taking these homeopathic medicines every 2 hours, and will the remedy still act? Or are you talking about you've got eczema and you're taking a remedy for eczema and you're taking that twice a day and you've been doing it for the last 2 months? So it kind of depends on the circumstance to a certain degree. And the reason that I don't worry about mint so much is because I'm no longer classical. I don't use classical homeopathy. With classical homeopathy, here's the key. You take one remedy, one dose, and that's it. Now you wait 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes they use a split dose, or I used a split dose, and you would repeat it that night and perhaps the next morning as well. But after that, that's it. You don't take the remedy anymore. So if you have mint, a good strong mint, not a cup of mint tea, a good strong mint, you get the essential oil and you're sniffing it, and you've got it all around you, then indeed it can antidote that remedy. And if you're working with classically based homeopathy, you've just antidoted potentially, you won't know, for 6 to 8 weeks. You don't know whether or not it was because you antidoted it, or the remedy was incorrect, or something else acted. The method that I use for chronic conditions, more often than not, is used twice a day. Morning, night, morning, night, morning, night. So if in between you take, mint, you're going to take it again that night. It's only going to stop the action of the remedy at that juncture. That's where it ends. It doesn't undo all the good that's accumulated. It stops the action. If you remember that, it just stops the action. Then if you take the remedy after that time, you're starting it up again. But mint tea is not a concern. I drink mint tea all the time. Although I will tell you, I don't take remedies right now. Haven't taken them in quite some time. I actually don't need any homeopathic medicines. I take a couple of herbs once in a while to help make my hair thick and fluffy and stuff. But that's about it. That's all I use. But when I was using some remedies, then I would still have my cup of mint tea from time to time, sometimes every night for night after night. So do we have any other questions here?
How about this one?
Yeah, let's see. Perry's going to show me one here.
Sandy's.
Sandy, if you need to antidote, but you have an acute, see more, it says. If you need to antidote, but you have an acute. It's not coming around very well.
But you have to kill yourself. Can you take this?
And you have an acute. Oh, but you have an acute that is really awful. Can you take the acute remedy before waiting 24 hours? If you need to antidote, but you have an acute that is really awful, can you take the acute remedy? Oh, I see. Because you figure that you're taking the camphor and you're antidoting from that. No, you do not need to wait 24 hours. Before I started using camphor as an antidote, the rule was the best antidote is the correct remedy. So if you need a remedy for something that's going on, whether it's an acute or chronic even, no, you do not need to wait 24 hours if you're really in trouble, or if you really don't want to wait, or you feel like, I don't think I can do this, I can't wait any longer. No, you don't need 24 hours. So that's a general rule to use 24 hours after using camphor, but it's not a hard and fast. In fact, you have another one here. There are very few 100% hard and fast rules because homeopathy is so broad, and we're talking about so many conditions here. Jennifer, love you and Lily. I live in these dresses down here. That's all I wear. Thank you very much. That's really sweet. Thank you for sharing. Do we need to clear? Okay, then we got that one. Do we need to clear with camphor after a cold filled with lots of remedies before we move back to treating for chronic conditions? Great question. I'm really glad you're asking about these antidoting questions. No, you do not need to do that. If, however, you had a cold and you took an antibiotic or you took Tylenol, before you go back to your chronic condition, treating for the chronic condition, yes, I would urge you to do that. But let's say you don't have time, something comes up, you fall, you hit your head, and now you got to take arnica or Bellus perennis or something. Don't worry about the camphor that much. It is a great way to settle things out, but it's not an absolute. Okay. I think we've got them. I think we've done it. You know, we've been here for a while. So let's see if I can see. All right. I think we've got them. Oh, Katie, we've got one more. Okay, we'll just do this one and then we'll go. What do you use to thicken your hair? Yeah. I use equisetum, which is horsetail. And I think you know about this, Katie. But yeah, I know you're probably asking regardless. I buy it in a tincture form, and I get it, usually I buy it on Amazon from Herb Farm. Now, Katie, I don't think is in the U.S., so sometimes it's harder to get stuff in Canada. But I don't know what they have in Canada for that. I'm sure that Herb Farm sells up there, but I get it through Amazon. And I keep a bottle of it on my desk, and it's a tincture, of course. And so I squeeze the pipette at the top. It draws up about 10 drops. Every time I sit down at my desk with a cup of tea, or a cup of coffee, or a glass of water, or some kombucha, or bone stock, whatever it is I'm drinking, I drop that in there. So I get that sometimes 2, 3, 4 times in a day. And yeah, look, I was losing my hair about a year ago. It got pretty unnerving, and it's all come back, and it's better than ever. So I believe it works. It's slow though. For most people, it's slow. Okay, one more. Okay, this is the last one. Okay, hi Martha. If you are using 2 protocols at one time, and it says to see more, I can pretty much, oh, here it is, at the same time, and both protocols have one remedy that is the same, how do you take it? As long as, I think I understand your question, as long as the potency is the same. In the beginning, I used to think that if you were using Lycopodium 200 with Plumbum, for example, for constipation, it would be Lycopodium 200, Plumbum 200 twice a day. And you had edema, Lycopodium is known for edema as well, but it really works best in a 30, Lycopodium 30. Would I be able to get the benefit of Lycopodium, even though it's used in a 200 with Plumbum, to help with edema as well? And I used to think that across the board that would work. But I've had second thoughts about it, and I see sometimes that it does work and sometimes that it doesn't. More often than not, I really believe that the potency is so important that if there's edema and the edema is serious enough, it needs to be used specifically in that potency. Lycopodium 30 needs to be used. Now, if there's just a little edema, then the Lycopodium 200 with Plumbum might just touch it. But if it's something that clearly has to be addressed, then you want to go to the very specific potency that's used for that particular condition. All right, ladies, and a few gents, mostly ladies. It's been great. I love it. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Wish I could see you. It's nice to see you. I see the little smiley faces running across the screen. So I wish you all a pleasant evening, and God bless all of you and your families. Good night.